Moving on to the future of social innovation, we're going to take a look at a couple of the key drivers. So urbanization, which is the fast growth of cities, environmental concerns, which is population growth as a result of the growing cities, and how that impacts climate change, and how we can combat climate change with these larger cities. The technological advances, we're going to look at some new technology that's going to become available, as well as how the world will change and things are going to start becoming more streamlined and convenient. And next, we're going to look at the aging population in regards to healthcare and how we're going to start treating people, especially the sick, and how that will change. And this is especially relevant due to COVID-19. And then we're going to look at education, which is always evolving and changing. Starting with urbanization, a megacity is defined as a very large city, especially with over 10 million people. And this is going to be one of the most important driving factors of urbanization. And it is averaged that 47 megacities exist today globally, 3 of which that house over 30 million people. And with these megacities growing so quickly, the UN has predicted that 68% of the world population and 85% of the North American population will live in urban areas. And because of this rapid growth, cities are expected to expand, and the core city centers, along with downtown areas, are going to end up combining with suburbs and smaller cities. And these new regions will actually hold most of the population of the world and present many new challenges for social innovators to tackle. The future, some of the ways these problems will be tackled are outlined here, such as megacities will become economic hubs to invest in and do business with, and instead of countries, cities will become unique customers with the ability to specialize in industries such as technology or mobility, and partnerships will develop between city governments and businesses as well as academia, and these partnerships will become the model for city project. So we're essentially scaling everything down from country to city because these cities are going to be so large, is how it's anticipated in the future. And one way this is going to be combated is with high-speed rail stations, and they will become the centers of business and social activities so that people aren't just wasting time on their commute. And another innovation that is expected is remotely programming drones, which should become larger and powerful enough to transport people throughout a city. And moving on to the environment and green cities, the people, however, will not be the only problem in the cities. So, to combat climate change and preserve the environment, cities are going to have to be built to be green cities. And this means that they would have things such as rainwater cleansing. So instead of gutters on buildings, the bioswales, which is absorbent rain gardens, and pools will collect and filter rainwater for reuse, essentially enabling us to recycle the water that we already pump back into the air to be rain again. It's all part of the common water cycle. And cities will be compact and dense enough in order to limit damage to the ecosystem. It is expected that everything is going to be built essentially on top of one another, and their proximity is going to help hopefully reduce the amount of environmental impact that is brought on by much of the urban spread. And cities are going to be designed around nature and actually enhance the natural features in order to protect the wildlife and their habitats as well as natural resources. And these cities are called sponge cities, which helps describe cities that use strategies to recycle and conserve everything they can. These strategies include things like the waste will become resources to produce energy or other useful materials, landfills and abandoned industrial areas going to be repurposed for soil remediation, and all parks and infrastructure to allow water to percolate through soil to recharge the water table. And then moving on to urban farming in cities, another way that this is going to help is just every part of the city will be integrated to use natural resources, and create food or other resources. So there's going to be solar panels and roof gardens, because obviously there's not much ground space available, so people have to find a way to do it. And windowsills just aren't going to cover it, so let's use that roof space that would initially have been ground space. And then hydroponic technology, which will allow the urban farming to expand without the traditional soil. Then we're going to move on with food products, which should be subject to sustainability practices across the entire life cycle from production to delivery. And it is anticipated that most of the produce will be locally sourced from most of these rooftop gardens. And the water filtration and the native landscaping should improve, most importantly, from the environmental monitoring in the streetscapes, paying more attention to the natural features that I mentioned beforehand. And then possibly the most important thing about these green cities is the way that they are going to help combat climate change and preserve the natural habitats through use of city planning to help protect upland water systems and the rigorous collection and cleansing of the rainwater to hopefully improve the water quality, as well as wetland restoration with the sponge city ideas to revive habitats and protect against future flooding and the rising sea levels that are anticipated. In addition to this, using hydroponic technology will allow urban farming to expand without traditional soil-based gardening, because this helps save space and will prevent sprawling metropolis-like industrial scale items. And clean energy will also be very important, and cities will also be able to produce as much energy as they can consume, in part by taking advantage of solar panels on all available surfaces of buildings, including even solar panel windows. And another way to help the environment is to keep emissions low, and this would be mostly due in part to the automated technology and the potential of the high-speed rail, which means that fewer personal cars would be transmitting emissions, and it would make more room for pedestrians and walking. And with the way that these cities are planned, most everything would be within walking distance. And technology with smart cities, these cities would also be built and designed smart, integrating new technology to make things better for residents. So cities will be designed with accessibility in mind, as well as safety for the population that is anticipated to increase in these urban areas, as I've said multiple times. And residents of these cities would have more convenient access to the nature, the services, and the automated technology, as well as buildings constructed with efficiency and pedestrian access in mind. Like I just mentioned, everything should be close enough to where you can just walk to it, and it improves the quality of life, as well as improves the access to natural resources such as water, soil, and air. And then buildings would also have open garden spaces, hopefully allowing light to come in, or light just naturally, helping the gardens grow even if you can't always use the rooftop. Another way technology would be used in these new cities would be transportation, and that is the urban hubs should be connected by the high-speed trains that would be capable of reaching 600 miles per hour. Moving on to the healthcare and the aging population, with all the people together in these cities, practically stacked on top of one another, the age of populations will become a problem. So the increasing population of elderly people would shift healthcare initiatives towards preventive care, early diagnosis, and a constant sense of wellness needed to be used on the growing population of the elderly. Because of this, funding for healthcare is likely to increase, as well as access to it. And the type of healthcare will also change, probably to the format of highly personalized instead of general care, and would take advantage of always-on data collection. Another big change might be the use of AI in many things, which have been taught to us from several previous projects, in addition to robots taking over some tasks instead of doctors, such as patient intake and preliminary exams. Moving on to the workplace, robots can actually assist here as well, or AI in a sense, and that they will dramatically change the workplace for some people, especially in manufacturing jobs, but almost every workplace is anticipated to be affected by the AI or robots. And it is anticipated that this will become the standard, or working remotely would also be much more common. With increasing technology, it is becoming more and more possible for people to work from home. And as I've mentioned previously, with the COVID-19 pandemic, this is especially relevant because many companies are beginning to realize how efficient it can be to work from home, seeing as most people are being sent home to work during this time. And because of all the new technology, human roles in the workplace will become mostly creative, wherein AI cannot creatively think, so they will be doing the simpler tasks while we, the humans, continue to be innovative and produce changes that the robots would then carry out, more than likely. So it's not that robots will take all jobs, it's that all the jobs are subject to change. And one more field that social innovation will be important for the future is education. And since this is an ever-evolving field, it is constantly changing, and with the new technology and resources, many of the changes will be moving towards that, such as e-learning, which would allow classrooms to become more flexible and self-paced, and it is going to encourage more of that learning to be self-paced, as well as that more personalized learning allows students to be challenged when needed, but also allows them to take the time they need to learn what they need to do. Another way that curriculum will change is that classrooms will also adapt a more project-based approach to learning to mimic the direction workplace is going and technology and how this is going to be important, as well as students will become more responsible for forming their curriculum and have more input in what they learn and how, which is more on the basis of charter schools at this point. And now we have our sources.